What's up everyone, I've got a special video for you today. A new Claude model has literally just dropped, it's Opus 4.7, and here's exactly what's changed. Now every single tech channel is going to make the same video. They're going to read the press release, show the benchmarks, and say it's impressive. But that is not this video. This doc breaks down exactly what has changed in Opus 4.7 from the perspective of someone who actually uses Claude every single day to run an AI lead generation and automation agency. It's not just the benchmarks and it's not some hype document, it's what actually works and what it means for you running this kind of work. Now, in short, Opus 4.7 is a meaningful upgrade over Opus 4.6, especially for coding, long-running tasks, vision, and instruction following. It is not it's not a generational leap by any means, not like Mythos, which we'll get to in a minute, but it's the kind of upgrade where the things that used to need babysitting now work reliably without it. And that reliability compounds across every single workflow it touches. If you're new here, my name is Dominic Schwantes. I'm the founder of Workflows, a B2B AI lead generation agency. I document everything I do in real time, the campaigns, the systems, and the results. And what you'll find in this document is based on what actually works, not just some theory. So let's have a look at the first new improvement, which is better coding, especially on the harder tasks. Now, Opus 4.7 handles complex, long-running coding tasks that previously needed close supervision. Now, Anthropic's own framing is that users can now hand off their hardest coding work with confidence, keyword being confidence. In practical terms, the model is better at holding context across long code generation sessions, catching its own logical errors during the planning phase, and verifying its own outputs before returning them to you. Now, for anyone building automations, this is the most relevant upgrade. The difference between a model that can write a make.com webhook handler in one pass versus one that needs 3 rounds of corrections is the difference between a 30-minute task and a 3-hour one. Now, a couple of benchmarks for you. Cursor reported that Opus 4.7 scored 70% on CursorBench versus 4.6 at 58%. Now that's a meaningful gap for real-world coding. Now Rakuten reported a 3 times higher more on production tasks resolved compared to Opus 4.6, and Notion reported a 14% improvement over 4.6 with fewer tokens used and a third of the tool errors. So essentially you're saving money here in the amount of tokens that it's having to process, and you're getting a better result. Now, this is actually one of the biggest parts where it's helping with Gemini's competition. As you know, Gemini is best for Nano Banana and all of those video generation models, and I think Claude has realized this, and now they're stepping up their vision game. So Opus 4.7 processes images at resolutions of up to 2,576 pixels on a long edge, which is more than 3 times the resolution capacity of the previous Claude models. Now, in megapixels, that's roughly 3.75. Now, for AI automation operators, this matters because the model can now reliably read screenshots of dashboards, metric campaigns, client reports, for AI cold email folks, smart lead analytics, and any other visual data that was previously too small or too dense for the model to parse accurately. It also means that it's better at processing scanned documents, PDFs with complex layouts, and a screenshot of tool interfaces as well. Now, Solve Intelligence specifically called out the improvement in reading chemical structures and interpreting complex technical diagrams. Now, for the AI automation space, the equivalent is reading smartly dashboards, Mac.com scenario layouts, and client-facing reports without hallucinating the numbers. For those of you who are strong and avid ChatGPT haters like myself, this is part of the biggest frustrations with ChatGPT. Anyway, moving on. More precise instruction following. Now, this is a problem across all AIs, obviously, that it can't follow instructions, and you need very in-depth prompt engineering to actually make it follow the instructions. But this Opus update is actually getting it to improve on the natural language. So it follows instructions more precisely than 4.6, and Anthropic noted that this may require users to adjust the prompt slightly, written for earlier models, which is an interesting admission for them to make. It means that the model is more literal and less likely to fill in gaps with assumptions that they don't have the information for. Now, for automation workflows, this is a double-edged upgrade. On one hand, prompts that are carefully written will produce better results, but on the other hand, prompts that relied on the model guessing what you meant will need to be tightened up. Now, the operators who have clean, specific prompts will see immediate gains straight away. Now, the operators who have been getting away with vague instructions will need to do some prompt cleanup and be more specific before they enter a prompt in. Now, let's have a look at the better long horizons task performance. So, the model will now stay on track over a longer period of time with improved reasoning and memory capabilities. Now, Devon AI CEO specifically called out that Opus 4.7 works coherently for hours and pushes through hard problems rather than giving up. Now, for anyone running multi-step automations or using Claude for tasks that involve several stages of reasoning, planning, and execution, this is a significant quality of life improvement. Now, Opus 4.6 was already good at long tasks, but it would occasionally lose the thread on really complex multi-step operations. If Opus 4.7 has genuinely fixed this, it opens up a class of automation work that was previously unreliable, and we'll find that out in the coming weeks. Now, the new effort level and pricing. Now, Anthropic has introduced a new level called xhigh in your Claude code settings. Now, that sits between high and max. Now, this gives operators more granular control over the balance between reasoning quality and response speed. Now, for most AI automation work, this means you can now dial the model's thinking intensity more precisely based on the complexity of the task, spending more compute on hard problems and less on routine ones. Now, the pricing of 4.7 is the same as 4.6. Now, $5 per million tokens inputs and $25 per million output tokens. Now, this is important because it means the upgrade is free for you, basically. Every single workflow, every API call, every automation that was running on 4.6 can easily be switched to 4.7 at the same cost with way better results. Now, what you've all been waiting for is the actual benchmark comparison. Now, Anthropic published the benchmark comparison showing Opus 4.7 outperforming 4.6 in a range of evaluations. Now, on finance agents evaluations, 4.7 scored way higher than 4.6. On GDPAA, which measures economically valuable knowledge across works of finance and legal domains, 4.7 also showed clear improvement on coding for 70% versus 58% on 4.6. And Rakuten benchmarks produced production engineering 3 times higher than the 4.6 model. Now, the benchmark comparison shows 4.7 beating 4.6 on every single metric, while remaining less capable than Mythos Preview, which is Anthropic's most powerful model currently under limited release, obviously due to safety concerns. Now, I would think of this as sort of the baby strapped model or the kid version of Mythos, because obviously, as you know, this was smashing and destroying Apple's Fireware and all of the big Fortune 500 companies. Now, if we have a look at how Opus 4.7 compares specifically to 4.6, I think the main point of contention is particularly in the agentic coding, the first one that catches my eye, having a second look at this. As you can see, it's 64.3 on 4.7 versus 53 on 4.6. Now, as you go down the chart, obviously it's way higher and scores obviously higher than 4.6 did. But the other main thing to keep in mind, as we said before, as they've emboldened, as we spoke about over here, was the agentic financial analysis. So particularly if you're getting it to do all your accounting, which at least I'm starting to do, I can make a video about that in the coming days if you want. But I'm getting it to do all of my spreadsheets and all of my documenting, so I'm not really paying my accountant much anymore, to his disappointment. But now it is much more solid and can actually calculate financial data based on real world, real numbers, and without hallucinating. So it's also trying to match Gemini. I think this is actually the biggest takeaway, is that now it's actually trying to match Gemini's capability. So A, with the image generation, B, with the multilingual Q&A. And if you go to look at all the benchmarks of the major AIs, Gemini is at the top for a lot of them, but wasn't at the top for coding, I believe. I think Opus still had that. But all of the language models, it smashed ChatGPT and all the other AI models. And I think Anthropic has noticed that and has now tried to improve some key areas. So I think hopefully soon, once they put some safety parameters, we can get access to all of these cracked numbers over here. But I think now it is too dangerous, unfortunately. Now, let's have a look at what this means for a real-world applied context for you and I. Now, for most AI automation agencies and operators who use Claude for a combination of a couple of tasks, so writing copy, building automations, researching niches, generating campaign briefs, analyzing data, and running multi-step workflows, Opus 4.7 touches every single one of those use cases. Now, better instruction following means tighter, more specific outputs from the same prompts. If you have been building a library of prompts for campaign copy, research briefs, or client proposals, those prompts will produce noticeably better results on 4.7 without any changes. Now, the gains here are incremental, but they compound across every single piece of content the model generates. Now, pertaining to automation building specifically, the improved coding capabilities are the biggest win for anyone building automations in Make.com or N88 or any other platform that requires writing code for webhooks, AI integrations, or custom logic. Now, the model is better at planning complex code, catching its own errors, and producing working code on the first pass. For operators who spend hours debugging Claude-generated code, this will cut that time in half and even more so significantly. Now, if you're generating dashboards and reports, this is what it means for you. A 3x improvement in image resolution processing means you can now screenshot a Smartly dashboard, as I've tried to do multiple times and hasn't gone so well, paste it into Claude and get an accurate reading of the metrics without the model hallucinating numbers from blurry text. Now, this was a real limitation in 4.6 and for anyone trying to use Claude for campaign analysis, but 4.7 delivers on this and unlocks a workflow where campaign monitoring becomes partially automated. Now, for running long-running agent tasks, for operators using Claude Code Claude projects or any other agent framework, the improved long horizon performance means that the span hours of work that will be more reliable for you. Now, this kind of upgrade does not show up in a single prompt, but actually shows up dramatically when the model is running a complex multi-step workflow unsupervised. So you can go have a coffee, you can go do other stuff and come back to it. Now, the big doom and gloom question, the Mythos question. Anthropic's announcement makes it clear that Opus 4.7 is their most powerful model yet. The Mythos Preview exists, it's more broadly capable, and is being held back due to cybersecurity concerns under something called Project Glasswing. Now, Opus 4.7 is a commercial release. Mythos is a research-grade model that Anthropic is not yet comfortable releasing widely. Why? Because it's breaching all of the major Fortune 500 companies and finding faults in their system. And if it was in the hands of some 21-year-old college kid in a dorm hacking it, it could go very badly. Now, the fact that Anthropic is being explicit about this suggests that Mythos is meaningfully more powerful than it's leading on, and that the gap between Opus 4.7 and Mythos is larger than the gap between 4.6 and 4.7. Now, for AI automation operators, this means the current model is not the ceiling. There is another level coming when Mythos eventually gets a broad release. The capabilities gap will be significant, and building workflows and systems now that are designed to take advantage of better models when they arrive is a smart strategic play to go. So, that was a whole bunch of information I thrusted at you. So what all this means, if you're running an AI automation workflow in Claude, here is the practical checklist. Switch your API calls from Opus 4.6 to 4.7. The pricing is identical, so you won't be incurring any other cost. Test your existing prompts. The improved instruction following means that some prompts may produce different results, usually better, but occasionally different in ways you didn't expect. Run your core prompts through Opus 4.7 and compare the outputs. Now, this actually might be a good thing for you guys learning prompt engineering. It may actually produce worse results because you haven't given it the correct context and the enough context that it needs. So when you're actually prompting Claude, it may take a little bit more time, but if you actually list all of the details and every single bit of information, like you were telling a new staff member how to do something, you will get even better results, giving it all the information. Now, test the vision capabilities. If you have been manually reading dashboards, campaign metrics, or client reports, try screenshotting them and feeding them to Opus 4.7. The resolution improvement may mean that this workflow is now viable where it wasn't before. Now, pertaining to Claude Code, try the xhigh effort level for your hardest tasks. If you have prompts that occasionally fail or produce mediocre results on high effort, xhigh may push them over the threshold without going all the way over to max effort and the associated latency. Now, do not rewrite all your prompts immediately. The model is backwards compatible. Your existing prompts will work, but optimize the ones that matter the most first and leave the rest for later. So, to summarize, Opus 4.7 is not a revolution. It is a meaningful, practical upgrade that makes existing workflows more reliable, existing code generation faster, and existing vision capabilities generally useful for the first time. Now, the operators who will benefit most from this are the ones who are already deep in Claude-powered workflows, who will notice the compounding effects of small improvements across every single task the model touches. Now, the operators who are still on the fence about integrating Claude into their automation stack now have one less reason to wait. The model is better, the pricing is exactly the same, and the gap between operators who use AI effectively and operators who do not is widening with every single release that Claude comes out with. So, moral of the story, upgrade, test, and ship. So if you're a business owner and you need more clients, that's what we do. We run done for you cold email. Our campaigns are hitting 22% positive reply rates right now. If you want us to do the same for your business, the link to apply is in the description below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new daily videos. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.